All right, everybody, welcome back to Drew's Garage Projects. Welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to address some lighting issues on the Colorado. So like every other aspect of the truck, the lights in the bed, they're standard. They're halogens, incandescents. They're not up to standard. They're not very bright. If you're doing anything at night, it's pretty difficult. So we're going to upgrade the cargo lights and put some LED strips in. So to give you an idea what we're talking about, here's what the stock cargo lights look like, and you can see they're a pale yellow. They're not very appealing. If you're loading or unloading at night, they're just not going to be that much help for you. So we are going to swap out the factory lights with some last fit LEDs. Here's kind of what I got. I got them off Amazon, or you can get them from Last Fit. It's a pretty simple install. It's a T15, so I'm going to speed this up for you guys. So you can see those are quite a bit brighter. So now we're going to get underneath the bed. Every Colorado is wired for the factory bed lighting plug. So you just got to take this end cap off here. I had a lot of issues. So you can see the way this is supposed to work, there's a red safety tab, a red retaining tab that you slide it all the way up, push down on the tab. This little cap for the factory wiring pulls right off. Mine was just wouldn't come up all the way. It would only go halfway, so I had to break it off. But I'm not reusing this piece. I ordered a harness from Gen 5 DIY. Those guys are great to work with. I just messaged them. I said, hey, you don't offer this, but I'd like it. So this is what they sent me. As you can see, it's a direct replacement for my factory plug. It's going to plug right into my factory harness, so I don't have to cut it off. It was worth a couple bucks this cost for me not to have to splice it. It's got some 8-inch leads on it. I'm going to go ahead and put a fuse holder on it. I ordered a couple inline fuse holders off Amazon. Going to put probably a 5-amp fuse in it, because you always want to fuse your product. Here's an example that the fuse holder is. So we're going to get under the truck, and I'm just going to show how I do the wiring underneath here. It seems like a lot of these videos nobody ever shows it, but I'm going to. So at this point, we're kind of skipping ahead. Like at this point in the project, I've actually already mounted the LED strips, and I've already ran the wires, extended the wires down to underneath the bed. And this is on the driver's side. So when you're running the wires, obviously you want to be aware of any moving parts, be aware of where the exhaust is at. I've got it in wire loom. One, it makes it look better. It's a little bit stealthier. It looks original, like it possibly could have come that way. And then it helps protect the wires even more, because I'm in the Midwest. I don't need corrosion happening. I don't need any water getting in anywhere. Rocks get thrown up if I go off-road, anything like that. So what we're doing now is you just route the wires over to where the factory plug is, leave a little bit of extra room. What I'm doing is splicing positive, negative, like 3 wires all together right here. I'm going to solder them and heat shrink them, and then also still go ahead and tape them up and make sure they're in loom, just to make sure, like I said, they're protected, they look good, they're secured. So you can hear it is the plug, and I've already got the fuse holder already attached. And I've got these wires secured with zip ties every foot to 18 inches or so. And if it gets to where it's going around a bunch of bends, you can kind of see in this photo, they're maybe every 6 inches, because I want them to follow the factory wires. And then you don't want too much excess, because that's just more wire you're going to have to try and find room for, but you also don't want to make it tight. You want to have a little room for movement, with movement of the bed, movement of the suspension, anything like that. I don't love these type of wire strippers, but they do have their place when it's difficult to get both hands up in there and really pull on something. I think you'll see here in a minute. I actually had to grab a different set of wire cutters because they were just some cheapies. Like I said, I don't really like them, but there's time and place for them. So just got some standard wire cutters here or strippers to finish stripping the wire. Make sure I've got all the excess that I need to have a good clean solder connection. So strip off about maybe an inch or so, inch and a quarter of wire. Go ahead and wrap them up. Make sure there's no strands anywhere. You don't want anything that's going to stick you or stick through your heat shrink or anything like that. So again, the positive and negative, both positives from both LED strips are getting tied together. Both negatives from the LED strips getting tied together. And then those will go to the pigtail from the harness that I ordered from Gen 5 DIY. Heat shrink, you can use it or not use it. I like this stuff. This stuff's got also have the coating on the inside of it, so it's supposed to be weatherproof. If you really want to, you could probably just electrical tape it, or you don't necessarily have to solder it at all. I like it. I used to be a 12 volt installer, and we were always taught to solder. That if you have a proper solder connection, it's never coming apart. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to get in there again. But if you don't have access to a soldering iron, or you're not comfortable with it, or not comfortable soldering over your head, then you could probably use butt connectors or something similar. And one more note, I guess, if you're going to be soldering over your head, make sure you wear safety glasses. You probably should wear safety glasses anytime you're soldering, but I know sometimes a lot of guys don't like to. Fogs up, they get scratched up, especially if you don't have a quality pair. So, like any tool, especially if it's a safety tool, I usually feel like it's worth splurging the extra bucks. But you can kind of see, we're just getting ready to solder on this other connection right here. All right, so at this point, we're actually making the connection to, from the harnesses that come from the LED strips to the pigtail that's going to plug into the factory harness for the bed lighting. And again, you want to have a good solid mechanical connection before you start soldering. Otherwise, your joint could fail. You could have a cold solder joint, or just with the vibration over time of solder itself is brittle unless there's a good mechanical connection underneath. So make sure you get these wires twisted up nice and solid. And you can see I've got the heat shrink on there, getting ready to protect the wires in case of out of the elements. Like I said, I'm here in the Midwest, the Rust Belt, so probably can't tell it from looking at the bottom of this truck because it's pretty new. It's less than a year old at this point. It's only seen the last 2 months of winter, and it was a pretty mild winter at that. So just taking me a second to get the light repositioned here so I can go ahead and make the connections. So here we're going to go ahead and get the soldering iron in here. I've got a cordless snap-on one. You can use this one's butane. Milwaukee makes a battery-powered one that looks like it's pretty nice. It's quite a bit bigger though, so you might have trouble getting into this space because it is kind of tight. Or a soldering gun would work just as well. Weller makes a ton of different models that work for this. I have a Craftsman gun I like to use a lot, but I do like the butane one, especially in this case. I was at the end of my driveway. I didn't have to worry about hauling an extension cord out there or anything like that. So Um, and plus, it's smaller. One thing to be aware of when you're using a butane gun, though, if that's what you want to do, is it does have an exhaust. So you want to make sure that exhaust is, or be aware of where the exhaust is pointed. You don't want to point it right at a wire harness or your hand or plastic. Just be really aware because it can melt or burn anything it's pointed towards because it's essentially a torch that you're just focusing the heat into the soldering iron or into the soldering tip. So you can see I let it cool off a little bit, just to make sure. You don't want to try and slide heat shrink over a hot solder connection. One, you could burn yourself, but two, the heat shrink might start shrinking and it's going to make it even harder to put on. And once it's shrunk and you've got it soldered on, you're not going to be able to get that back off. So I would have had to go to tape or something like this. And then, there's a lot of different ways to shrink down, heat shrink, lighters, torches. I myself prefer to use a heat gun. You don't have to have it on its highest setting, but I think you have a little bit more control than what an open flame was. So this one's a Wagner. I've just got it on low heat here, and just kind of move it around to make sure you're getting all areas. I do have a butane torch that I like to use sometimes, but I didn't really want to use it today. It was kind of finicky. And what's crazy is I was just talking about the reason I like the butane iron is I wouldn't have to run a extension cord out here, and now here I am with the extension cord to run this heat gun. I did notice I was shopping online the other day. I guess DeWalt makes a battery-powered heat gun, which is pretty sweet. I've never seen it. I've never heard of anybody that had it. I didn't even know it was a thing until I was shopping tool deals, and I saw it was one of the options they had to, like if I bought that, I could have got a lesser price tool. It was like a buy one, get one, or I don't remember exactly what the deal was with it, but I like using heat guns. Unfortunately, I don't use them enough to where I necessarily think I want to spend my funds on getting a cordless one right now, but maybe down the road, who knows. So anyways, once you got your heat shrink in place, go ahead and I like to put zip ties over it, especially where all the wire is coming together, just to make sure if there is any sort of stress on the wire that the zip ties are going to dissipate that and it's not going to be yanking on the actual joint itself. Once I get that done, I'm going to go ahead and tape it up, put the rest of my loom over it so it's good to go. And then, like I said, I understand this part of the video is probably pretty boring, but it seems like a lot of people don't ever show how they do the wiring, so I just thought I'd show as much of it as I could. Some of this stuff, there was a little bit of not much going on, so I shortened it up. And this video is all speeded up. This isn't in real time. This is I think a 15-minute video, and it probably took me an hour to do it. Over the course of 2 days, actually, because I had an issue at first with the LED light strips. So, anyways, as you can see, I've got all the connections made. I just need to pop a fuse in. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the loom, get it tucked up in there real nice, so it's not, again, it's protected, it's not catching on anything. It'll be up out of the way. So again, we're going to make that connection. Alright, so here are the LED strips I went with. These are way too long. I don't know what I was thinking. You can get away with a 1 meter. I cut up a lot of this. I had a lot of excess. I liked these because they didn't have a built-in switch. It was just leads, so I could wire it into my pigtails pretty quickly. So they worked pretty good for me. The only issue I did have with them is the tape that came with them didn't really fit that well with, it didn't adhere that well. So I got some very high bonding VHB 3M tape off Amazon, and I stuck the strips to the tape and the tape to the truck, and that's held up great. So then you can kind of see what I did here. I've got the strips going down each bed rail on both sides. It's held up really well. These have been on there for about a month, and I've got the wires kind of going down through. There's a hole in the bed, and then get up underneath the truck here. I just want to show you how I've got the wires ran down. You can see the wires drop down through that hole in the bed like I was talking about. Then we're going to go over the frame rail, and I've got them zip tied to the factory harness every 6 to 12 inches or so. I tried to put the zip ties next to the factory anchor point to eliminate flex. Come over to the other side, again following harnesses all the way across. I'm going to go up over the frame rail, follow some factory harnesses down, and then make my connection there. And then here's what we look like, the finished results. I'm super happy with it. I can load or unload at night with so much more visibility now. Here's another picture. This is with me actually standing in the way of the cargo bulb, so great visibility. Hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe for more projects, and we will see you next time.